Okay, so let me go ahead and share my deck. I hope all of you can see it. Yeah, so today's webinar topic is manage business cost to drive better margins using the Oracle in-memory cost management cloud platform. So myself, Prantik, and we have Manoj. We are both SCM solution architect working in Trinamix, having experience of delivering supply chain solutions for more than 20 years, mostly on Oracle platform. And as we are working with Oracle and customers on some of the recent cloud platforms that Oracle is releasing, we found this particular solution to be really interesting and very close to what we do in the supply chain space. So today it's an effort from our side to articulate the value of the platform and how you can use it to do more detailed cost analysis to help your business to drive profitability and margin for the products. So these are the high-level topics we are covering. We are going to look at the cost drivers for business. What are the typical questions businesses trying to analyze around cost across the various parts of the supply chain, operations, manufacturing, distribution, looking at the whole aspect of it. And then what are the challenges to find the answer to those questions? And then how Oracle IMCM Cloud fits in to provide those information and answers to that question in a pretty articulated fashion so that business has the data in their fingertip, and based on that data, they can look at overall profitability, look at pricing, and then serve customer better. We will also have, as we are implementing this platform with customers, they've started rolling out. So we would like to share 2 customer use cases, how they're looking into it, what their systems are, how they're putting it together, what are the key drivers for adopting a platform like this, and what they're trying to solve from the platform. As I mentioned, we are into implementations, multiple implementations, proof of concepts, talking to customer. As we are going through this, we are learning, picking up some key lessons from this implementation. So we definitely want to share those pointers with you. And then at the end, we will have a few slides of Trinamix, what we do, where we are coming from, what's our expertise in general in cloud platforms, and then around the in-memory cost management cloud solution. Okay, so let me get to the details. So let's look at the current state. What are the different business cost element and analysis that needs to be done? What are the questions that business asking around cost? So if we look at kind of end-to-end, left-hand side where we are serving customer, we are planning for our products, we are sourcing to make those products, we are making, in many cases, we are outsourcing those products, and then we are once the product we assemble or we kind of ship from our partners, we are delivering those products, fulfilling those products. So all these elements, starting from acquiring a customer and then kind of a distributing cost around our planning process, making process, sourcing process, delivering the product or fulfilling the product throughout the logistics network. There is significant and very well-defined cost elements there. And then there are other overhead kind of costs that also gets into the overall cost calculation. So in our view of the world, there are costs which is across the entire supply chain of conceiving a product and delivering it finally to the customer. And depending on what role you play within your business segment, whether you're a procurement planner, whether you're a production planner, whether you're kind of fixing price of the product, you're from an operation perspective, you're looking at a total cost, your executives who's looking at the profitability, how to serve a particular market versus which products you need to invest more to grow those product segments. It's very important to understand this cost aspect. Now, traditionally, we have seen customers kind of coming this from an enterprise performance management perspective, where based on historical data, you look at how various cost elements have played into your overall production cost and fulfilling cost end-to-end to customer. But more and more, the market is moving towards having more granularity of understanding how each of the cost element plays and rolls up into overall cost. And more you understand about these cost elements in their totality and then in their granularities, that gives you more control to kind of look at individually and then see if you make changes which makes sense for your operation, whether it will also make sense for your customer, the particular market you are trying to grow. And then by tweaking, by changing, by those cost elements and drivers, if you can arrive at a better overall cost understanding, and then you can have your pricing strategy aligned with that. So the call of the time is understanding all this individual costs in segments or also in totality. So when we kind of put an aspect of what are the segments, right? So it's kind of starts from the core cost, which is source, make, deliver, that rolls up to the landed cost aspect of it. And then cost to deliver will also incorporate the planning part of the cost, and then total cost to serve. When we look at the customer, keeping the customer team, the acquisition team, managing customer overheads, because you have some overheads going there, and then there are other overhead costs which are not directly around the make, source, deliver, but there are returns which flows into it, and then there are other additional costs to manage your supply chain, manage your people, manage your facilities. So they all kind of play a part. So the total cost to serve analysis is basically understanding how the profitability is driven for the products, for the customer. It's kind of a mesh of the customer, the product, in which market you are serving, and then how you are routing your cost and allocating your cost in that combination, the product, the customer, the market. And then based on that understanding, how you can drive the mix of products, mix of service, you do some operational changes, and then you can understand what's the impact of each of the segments on the general product profitability, and not only the general product profitability, but the profitability for the product, for customer, for some market segments. So as we talk more with customer, that's the vision, that's the need that we get from customer, that today there is a need of identifying each cost segments, identifying the landed cost. Landed cost was always there for the last 20 years. We have been in this, we have heard about landed cost analysis management, but then it's growing into the cost to deliver and cost to serve space of it, with the granularity of understanding how it makes sense for a particular product, customer, and market. Just move this toolbar a little bit. So a lot of cost related questions business need to address on a day-to-day basis. You can say these are a few of the use cases that we hear. We have tried to kind of list them and see. You'll be probably looking at many of these on your day-to-day business if you are trying to manage costs. So what happens if the product cost changes? And when we are talking about the cost changes, there are so many elements which drive the core product cost. The purchasing items, manufacturing items, if you're making your resources, and then the overheads that you allocate. The inventory revaluation. So if there are changes happening in the cost, then what's the impact on inventory? You're doing your cycle count across geographies, so what's the impact on that? Margin analysis, because there are product which has been shipped, there are products which is in shipping, and then the cost is changing. So you're not looking at a static, or what will be my cost of the product that's going to be shipped, but because I've made changes, there are products which is already in flight, on ship, so what will be the impact overall? We do periodic global revaluation of inventory, so there's impact on that. The cost structure that drives the product cost overall. So if there are changes in cost and cost element and cost type, which drives the product cost, can we compare those cost structure that drive the product side by side and see if there are some elements changing, what's the impact on the overall product cost structure. Suppliers, their returns happening from the customer to you, and then sometimes you are returning to your suppliers. So what's the impact of those returns in the overall product cost? So we will talk about few more. Okay, just give me a minute. I got stuck a bit. Make buy decisions, very common scenario, right? If you make in-house, there is a cost associated with it. If you make outside, and you might have multiple of suppliers where you can make different geographies where you can make, if you have multiple sourcing strategies. So what's the impact of the cost impact if you're making in-house versus outside, and then you might be making changes in your standard cost yearly, but at the same time, you want to see if these decisions are driven by, let's say, trade, tariff, or restrictions. If you cannot make in China, if you have to pull things in-house, we are all aware of what's going on today in the business. So can we do quick analysis to figure out what's the impact? Suppliers are putting bid. You are asking bid from suppliers. So, and you are trying to compare multiple suppliers. So if both are supplying purchase parts, then what's the impact of different bids onto our overall cost? Stand margins versus quote, you're looking at, you're doing the evaluation of what is the cost of good for total manufacturing. What can be some of the goals that your management has given you to reduce some of the cost elements, some segments of costs, and how you can analyze that. And then based on that, you can set some goals and drive those goals. So these are various scenarios. Probably we have listed few, but there are multiple other scenarios. Now the point is, if you have this kind of use cases and scenarios, do you have the right amount of data, the right platform to do this analysis, and then arrive at the objective that you're looking at, whether it's a cost reduction objective or trying to understand the right cost so that you can consider profitability aspect and eventually get to a product price for a customer market or a particular business segment. So let's look at, when we hear these use cases, what we are also hearing from customer, why they're looking for a solution where everything can be put together and the cost analysis can be done. What are the current impediments to arrive at this kind of detailed cost analysis? But before going there, right, so we talked about that not only this individual questions or in totality of it, but the ultimate goal is to understand, based on this cost analysis, why, and the profitability is where, what is driving, because the cost and then the implication of cost on the price and profitability. But in many cases, the goal is to understand what is this cost by region, by customer, by channel, and even within the product segments, we'll look at a use case where a customer really want to do this cost analysis at a product level, SKU level, because there are nuances. Many customers are asking about this analysis at a product category level, because there are nuances between different product categories. But look at a brand, look at different hierarchies into a brand or different product categories. So that need is there. We are hearing more and more that customers wants to do this profitability analysis by market, by their customer segment, or by different levels of their product categories. So what are the challenges that we talked about to achieve those goals? So today, in many cases, you're updating your cost annually. In some cases, we are hearing the cost analysis happens quarterly because it takes so much time. You have to pull in various disciplines of the business that we talked about in the beginning, the total cost to deliver. So there's purchasing, there's manufacturing, there's sourcing, there is transportation logistics, there's overhead. So many business function comes together. So it is challenging to get all that kind of cost data in one place and do this analysis. So in many cases, it's a quarterly process. Some cases, it's a yearly process. So it's not that dynamic. Then different cost objects, whether we are looking at the component cost, landed cost, just the manufacturing value, or what's the impact on tariff. So objectives are very different. So it cannot be tied to a common template, right? Then we are talking to a customer who wants to understand the cost impact all the way from a purchased item to a component to the assembly to the finished good. That kind of details is not available there. How we evaluate alternate supplies, component sources? Can we optimize the network based on that analysis? Difficult to do. I mean, these are scenarios we're hearing from the customer. The cost strategy about management of cost strategy. So to arrive at this kind of cost strategy, there is no tool or framework if how we can arrive at some of the cost strategy. Cost data itself. So if you have ERP, in many cases you have quite a bit of cost data, but beyond ERP, your fleet system, your purchasing data, the variances that are happening, the overheads, the financial allocation of data. So in many cases we are hearing the data, though we kind of assume if you have ERP, most of the data is there, but there are a lot of data which is also lying outside the ERP system. So how we can pull in this data together. And then the biggest problem that we see is if you have a complex supply chain, or you are a manufacturing customer who have a very complex bill of material, doing this cost analysis across the supply chain, across complex bill of material or complex manufacturing process is a challenge. It takes time to get the data, put it in all together, do the scenario analysis. So these are a few of the thoughts that business has shared with us. We have heard from Oracle. And that's where the bottleneck comes that, okay, we cannot manage all this cost element to put in one platform, one source, and do very detailed up cost analysis. So traditionally what we do, we kind of look at our financial performance over the last 4, 5, 6 years and see what cost assumptions we have made from a top-down perspective, and we have gone through segments, and we just make some changes in those assumptions. We allocate the cost and hope that those assumptions, those allocations are the right judgment that we have made, but we don't have any tool, any process, any framework, and capability to look at those assumptions and validate not only top down, also bottom up. I mean, put some details from our supply chain, from our manufacturing operations, and see if when we are coming from a financial performance management, when we are making those allocations, those assumptions, those decisions, are they really based on solid data and understanding of our supply chain and manufacturing operations? So how we bridge that gap? What can we do to put the details in that science and philosophy of cost analysis? So now we want to look at if these are the problems that we have heard over time, then what is the solution going forward, or what's happening in the industry in terms of tools, capabilities that we have to solve some of these problems. But end of the day, what we are trying to achieve is kind of make those assumptions and validate those assumptions very fast based on the details. So again, the driver is, in this case, the whole idea is how we can get details, bottom-up information, and based on that roll-up, that analysis, we can make the judgment that the financial allocation and assumptions that we made is substantiated by the supply chain and manufacturing and operation details, so that based on that decision, that information, we can make a very informed decision how to price our products by brand, by customer, by market, and based on that, we drive the total product mix and operation strategies to serve our customer better. So is the answer in cloud? I mean, cloud is a platform where you can become kind of agnostic of your ERP. If there's a framework, there's a solution where you can put your data very quickly and then do this kind of analysis very fast. Yes, that's where the industry is heading. I mean, 5 years back, there were these concepts which were developing, but at the same time, what was happening is the bottleneck was we need a big infrastructure, we need big machine, otherwise I cannot crunch my terabytes or gigabytes of data, because whenever we are talking about data which is bottom up, we are talking about any industry which has, let's say, complex bill of material running into 20 levels, thousands of parts, supply chain which is global, multiple factories, couple of tiers of suppliers supplying parts to the manufacturing process. We are really talking about pretty big data. So how we can crank up an infrastructure to get that data stitched of a framework where we can put supply chain, manufacturing operations, finance, direct cost, indirect cost together, take the actual transactions that's happening, because let's say you have a standard cost, but you're buying parts where there are variations, because each purchase order, there are some variations. So you want to look at an average cost and see what's the deviation that is happening. So we are really talking about a lot of data from different parts of your supply chain operation coming into a platform, and then you do quick analysis out of that platform, and then get to the result. So those capabilities were not there. Many customers tried to crank up this kind of projects internally with internal infrastructure. But now the good news is with cloud, with the computing power behind the cloud infrastructure, and then we are talking about Oracle putting together a very nice solution framework to this cost analysis. Maybe the answer lies in a combination of the solutions and a cloud platform to this kind of analysis. So we want to now look at what is this in-memory cost management cloud solution and how it addresses some of the problems. So we talked about the background is these problems kind of multiply if it's a combination of complex bill of materials, complex supply chain, which means more data, more analysis to be done, how you can do it quickly, and come to various scenarios where you can look at your cost elements and then figure out what's the right cost that you want to adopt, and then what's the margin then eventually to the price. So we are seeing this discussion predominantly in some of the industries that we are talking to. We are kind of getting also input from Oracle teams, but seems like this is becoming pretty interesting in the high-tech space, and all of these more or less qualify in that broad metrics where either the supply chain is complex, or the manufacturing process is complex, or it's a combination of two. And then these are the industries which are kind of a natural fit in that sense. We might be hearing very similar problems from all of this, but again, not only limited to this, it might go beyond, but these are the industries from where we are hearing a lot of customer concerns or wish that they could use a platform like this to do their cost analysis. So high-tech, semiconductor, industrial manufacturing, pharma, healthcare, telecommunication. Sometimes we consider telecommunication as part of the high-tech industry, but we are also seeing some nuances in telecommunication industry. So these are 6 primary industry that we have been talking to customers, and customers have expressed interest to do this kind of detailed cost analysis. But again, based on our experience, hearing from Oracle, the fundamental combination is complex process, complex manufacturing process, complex bill of material, complex supply chain. That's where the need is, and that's where the opportunity is. Looks like I'm stuck again. Give me a minute. Okay. So, I'm sorry for the toolbar coming in. So what is in-memory cost management cloud? So this is an offering from Oracle. If you are in Oracle space, have been talking to Oracle, the initial solution came in on-premise version, approximately 4 or 5 years back. That was based on the Exadata infrastructure that Oracle used to deliver at that point in time. Again, why it was Exadata is the computing power that's required, and At that point in time, Exadata was the state-of-the-art infrastructure which used huge computing power I/O to do this kind of analysis. But over the last couple of years, as Oracle is moving to cloud, porting all the platforms to cloud, in-memory cost management cloud has been delivered. Customers have started using it. We are getting into POC. So it is the way it is built. It's built using the PaaS components of cloud, but packaged together based on the use case, based on the data models. So this is a SaaS on PaaS subscription from Oracle. So all you need to do is talk to Oracle, subscribe to the solution, get your data ported to cloud, and then start doing the cost analysis, understand how the platform works, what are your opportunities, what kind of simulations you can do, and then start using the platform for driving your cost analysis, profit analysis, margins, and then arrive at some of the pricing decision. So this is ERP agnostic. That means this solution works on any ERP. If it is Oracle EBS, then there are standard connections available from Oracle EBS to port data into the cloud platform. And then if it is non-Oracle ERP, then we as partner provide, and Oracle of course provide means to export data out from your ERP platforms, and then we can pull that data in to cloud, and then we can do the subsequent analysis. So this ERP agnostic means you need not have a particular ERP to enable this solution, but if you have a EBS subscription, then the data can come automatically using some of the Oracle connectors. So what it helps is really to derive accurate cost of goods manufactured. So that's as a concept that's in core of the solution for, as we talked about, product-centric enterprise who are building products, complex products across a complex supply chain. Really good solution for them. So using this solution, you can do break-even analysis, and then you can look at your overall supply chain. Again, we keep talking about if you're a complex manufacturing product maker, but need not be always like that in any products. But if you have a complex supply chain, you need to do cost analysis across your supply chain elements. Or if you're making a complex product down the bill of material in various cost segments which are driving your product cost, you can do analysis based on this platform. So what it does, what it provides at a high level, we won't get into very deep details of the product capability. Of course, we would like to discuss more with you at a later point in time and drill down on some of this concept. But in a nutshell, this platform provides a planning capability. So the moment we talk about planning, you can have different cost drivers that goes into determining what's the cost. You can have different product segments. You can consider different market. When I say cost driver, you can say, okay, I want to run a cost plan based on my forecast. I want to run a cost plan based on actual bookings that I have. I want to run a cost plan based on average cost method while I follow a standard cost method in my industry. So just to see how things are, how things will differ, whether I want to take all the purchasing invoice, I want to take my indirect cost, direct cost. So there are various elements, what we call the cost drivers, the data, which products, which market, which customer, and then the allocation, how you want to allocate the product cost. Based on that, you can do planning. And once you do planning, you can compare, moment we talk planning, you can compare multiple cost plans, see the output, understand the cost drivers side by side. So you can do planning and then compare plans, or you can pull up your cost, you can see all the cost elements that's driving the product cost, and then you can do simulation by changing a few of those cost drivers. Let's say you change a component from a primary component to an alternate component, or you change a source, you're making in-house, you go to supplier as an alternate source, and see what's the impact. And then after you do this simulation, you compare the plans. You can also look at profitability, like each scenario or each plan or each simulation will give you, because you are also getting in your price of the product, how much you have sold, what's your projection in future, and then based on that, you can see what's the profitability. in each scenario. So this is a decision-making system. It's not like this is driving or changing anything back into your source of truth, which is ERP. This is not a source of truth. This is a decision-making system. So you get all the data in, your supply chain data, your manufacturing data, distribution, your actual transactions, your inventory, your WIP from the shop floor, the accounts that you want to allocate, and you take decisions. You do the planning, you do the scenario simulation, look at various profitability scenarios. You can look at the cost plan, and then you can analyze the cost plan side by side. You can look at the cost elements and compare those cost elements side by side. And you can see the impact. If you make changes in the cost drivers, you can see the impact on the profitability. So based on these key aspects, once you kind of derive or understand what are the cost drivers that you need to change. In many cases, we even didn't realize when we started looking into this product, but moment we started implementing this product, we also realized that this is kind of a discovery framework where, because Oracle provides those framework, how the cost elements are, what are the different supply chain segments that drive the cost element, what are the different bill of material segments that rolls up to the cost, and you get all the data from your ERP system or various other systems where these data segments are, and you stitch it together and you see the data through the platform. You start even understanding where there is missing data, where there is duplicate cost elements, where the item is similar, but the same item have been defined differently in different system. You can start also discovering a lot of data discrepancies. In many of our projects, we have spent a couple of weeks to 3 weeks to 4 weeks initially understanding this data, sitting with customer, and they have understood, hey, there is a lot of difference. I didn't expect this. This is how it's set up in the ERP. Let me first go and fix that data. And then we will start looking at what kind of scenarios that we want to analyze from. I apologize, it's getting stuck again and again. So 4 key segments of solution as we are discussing. So cost impact simulator, you can have unlimited number of models. You can have your production routing data, bill of material data, and then define scenarios. And then based on those scenarios, if you make change, roll up the cost and see what's the final cost that you are getting based on those scenarios. And then again, as we mentioned, you can also understand there are other cost elements in your supply chain which is driving the finished good cost that you were not anticipating that way. Again, your standard cost is there. No one is going and touching that. All you are doing here is now, again, looking at those segments, you're trying to understand how the cost is derived or arrived at, which are the elements which are driving, and then you can also identify based on the current data, right? So this is not only the static data and framework that is coming, your supply chain, your operation, you are pulling the transaction data, you're seeing the WIP in the shop floor, the purchase orders which have come in, the invoice you have raised, and based on that, you can see the difference, where your standard cost is, and maybe what's a simulated cost looks like, and then you also understand what is driving the cost that you are looking at within this simulation framework. You can do cost planning, which is again pretty cool. So we pull in forecasts from any forecasting or demand planning system, and then you can drive, because the bill of material, this is what is really cool about the system. We have this bottom-up data, right? Your entire supply chain bill of material in the platform. You get your forecast, you can drive based on that forecast, you can arrive at the component demand, and from there you can see what's the forecast for the component and the cost plan for that component, because now you have a view in the future, and then see what are the elements that will actually impact that cost view or cost plan. So that's pretty cool about it. And then cost comparison. So again, we are showing a bill of material representation. We can also have a supply chain representation. Complex manufacturing industry, they make components go into semi-finished goods or assemblies that gets put together in the final SKU that gets shipped out across multiple factories, production, in-house, external you can make those changes and see what's the impact on cost. And then because you can do the cost planning, cost comparison, then that has an impact on the gross profit analyzer. You are, end of the day, you are still getting the forecast, you have the price, you have your sales volume, and then as you get the cost understanding, you can also do the profitability analysis. So how it approaches the problem? So there is an engine inside the platform. It's not a BI tool. There is an engine which takes the data. So on the left-hand side are the cost sources. We discussed it in the first slide, that you have source, you have make, you have deliver, then the overhead, customer retention cost. All those cost elements can be pulled in. Again, it can come from ERP, it can come from multiple different systems. You have to identify where the cost is. And then once the data is exposed to the system through the UIs, you can make some adjustments. And again, the data can come from multiple legacy systems, data can come from ERP system. So what is inside the engine? So we consider this source, what we call a pool, and we consider target, what kind of item you are going to do the analysis, whether you're looking at a market, you're looking at an item segment, you're looking at a customer. And then there is a cost calculation, the allocation rules happen. So let's say how I'm going to, one example, one customer is trying to, and we'll talk about that example later in the use case. So they have their finished good sales, and they have very significant part sales. So now what they're trying to identify is how they're going to allocate the part sales. Now they're trying to understand impact of the SKU price, and of course they're analyzing the cost. But what they're trying to see is, what's my SKU price for this quarter, not only based on the SKU sales, but also the part sales which they want to allocate to the SKU sales, and see what's the total price they have got, kind of an average price for that matter. And then what's the cost? And based on that, they're trying to understand the profitability. So those allocations and rules you can define in this platform, and then the engine understands those allocation rules, understands which data it needs to look at, and then spell out the cost plan or cost analysis for which segments, which product, which market. And then while arriving at that, you can do multiple iteration. As we mentioned, you can do a cost plan, the simulations on a particular plan. You can do this what if scenarios, and then you try to arrive at the overall cost value. And then doing that, it provides, again, this kind of tool needs a lot of interfaces from a UI perspective. So it provides Oracle standard BI layer on the engine, and then it also provides a smart view. So if you have worked with financial planning systems like Hyperion that Oracle has on-prem, if you have worked on the cloud ERP systems, so Smart View is a pretty strong solution based on Essbase. So Smart View is part of this platform, and in Smart View you basically do the analysis, and it really helps because managing that kind of cost data. So in the BI aspect, you see the output, what's the profitability margin, but all the simulation scenarios are done in the Smart View, and from Smart View you can make changes in the different cost elements. Again, whether it's a supply chain component, it's a direct versus indirect cost type you want to change, or a particular component cost you want to change, roll up and see the impact, and then you run your standard reports using the Oracle Analytics Cloud interface that's provided in the system. There's another interesting way of using this solution that is evolving, and as we are implementing, we are also learning, is how you can, so far we have been talking about using the system to do bottom-up cost analysis, look at the profitability, margin, and then through this scenario simulation, arrive at what can be the cost, what can be some of the elements you want to control so that you land with a better cost, which eventually drives your margin and profitability. But those are more restricted within the operation analysis of cost and the cost drivers and how that impacts margin. But that kind of detailed analysis can also play a part in together with the supply chain planning process. So when we look at the, again, the core data that in-memory cost management cloud uses for all this cost analysis, as we have been saying, the entire supply chain structure, your manufacturing structure, then your financial accounting rules, and any overhead costs that is related. But again, we are talking 70 to 80% common data with supply chain, and that really helps, because as we looked at the cost planning of a slide back, that at a component level to derive the cost, we need a forecast, and because we have a bill of material in the model, we can create or arrive at the component demand and do the component cost analysis and look at what will be the volume of that component, what will be the cost for, let's say, next 1 year, and based on that, you can look at, okay, supplier A versus supplier B with that kind of volume. If I tweak the supplier cost, then what's the impact, how that component cost eventually rolls up to the SKU cost. But there is an element, because there's a cost planning, cost prediction, so we are kind of interacting with the supply chain solutions also. So Oracle on the supply chain side, demand management, supply planning, supply chain collaboration, sales and operation planning, these are standard solution portfolio from Oracle side. Sales and operation planning is one area, and demand management is another area where we see in-memory cost management cloud has a natural fit in terms of process handshake. As we mentioned, in-memory cost management cloud takes a demand input. That demand input can come from any demand management solution. So again, at this point in time, we are not really saying that it has to come from an Oracle solution. It can come from any other solution. That demand input can go into in-memory cost management cloud. You can do all the detailed cost analysis. And once you have that detailed cost analysis, you can get that information within a sales and operation planning scenario. And sales and operation planning scenario, looking from mid to long term. And that is where also you are trying to make strategic decision. Hey, whether I need more capacity, I need to extend my supply chain, I need to give off some of the suppliers because their cost is more, and because their cost is more, my margin is going down. Or I kind of start looking into a new technology of products, and if I do a new technology of products, what will be the cost? So that kind of back and forth scenario simulation within the sales and operation planning process, and with a particular kind of details within the in-memory cost management solution, we see this is evolving as a kind of a new discipline. So within sales and operation planning, strategic simulation, and then to back that strategic simulation with a bottom-up element into it, in-memory cost management cloud as a solution, that really plays very well. And in many cases, customers are asking whether these two solutions can, again, depending on what kind of solution you're using on the S&OP side, but can in-memory cost management solution tag onto it? And during those S&OP static simulation, can we use a very detailed bottom-up simulation tool to justify why we are making certain decision in our supply chain in terms of in-house outsourced manufacturing, in terms of picking some suppliers versus not picking some suppliers, in terms of going into some components versus not going into some components, rolling up to a customer product market level. So in-memory cost management simulation platform really fits very well into the overall S&OP simulation if you have that kind of process already baked into your supply chain planning solution. Okay. So coming to a little bit better view of the system, again, as I mentioned, we are not doing a system demo today. We will, of course, be interested based on your interest area and drill down. But this kind of shows what are the different elements that you get in the system. So very detailed cost analysis tools from a manufacturing perspective. You get the BI layer, which exposes all the profit analysis and cost plan output to you to take a look and compare those plans side by side. As we mentioned, the Excel view, which is Smart Excel, which is embedded into the system. So all the detailed cost data you can expose through Smart View, and you can invoke the cost simulator or the gross profit analyzer or the cost comparison aspect. You can do those calculations. You can see the impact, and then you can also finally you can run a report using the BI layer, the Oracle Analytics Cloud, there is ways to define the cost plan and what goes into the cost plan, very user friendly. So think of a scenario where you have a platform to do all this very fast. That's the key. One is crunching all this data, the bottom-up detailed supply chain and bill of material data, doing the scenario simulation very fast with that kind of high volume data. So that's where the cloud infrastructure and the horsepower of cloud infrastructure comes in. And then you have the right platform, the UI to interact with that data using SmartView, do all the scenario simulation and what if, and then finally presenting the output of those cost plan analysis, scenario simulation using a standard Oracle Analytics cloud layer. So those are some of the UIs, how you will interact. Again, the point was putting data together, easily understanding even getting a framework of simulation and cost planning that was not there in a traditional ERP system. We always used to do some jugglery and build some solution on top of it. But here, the three key points we see is getting the data in, having the right horsepower to analyze the data, and then presenting the data to business through a SmartView kind of user interface or OBI or analytics kind of user interface to make very quick decisions. So we talked about customer use case. This is again becoming very, very popular with customers. Again, combination is manufacturing heavy, complex manufacturing process or complex supply chain process, or in some cases, it's a combination of both. So we are looking at, and so we gave this example earlier, so we are looking at a global appliances major. The moment we talking about appliances, this is pretty heavy in a sense of how the components going in. You can judge from that. And their manufacturing process, they have multiple plants. They're doing manufacturing of components in-house. They're putting it together. In many cases, they're getting components from external suppliers, and then they're directly shipping to customers. So all the complexities are there. But they had two main use cases. They wanted to, and which was very interesting. When we went into this implementation, we thought the use cases which was initially defined was they want to do the cost analysis, bottom up, understand their cost of goods manufacturing, what are the elements driving that, what is the current state, the current standard cost, and then if they do a simulation, they will try to figure out what will be the opportunities to improve those cost elements to drive the cost down, and then look at every SKU or SKU category and see what is the profitability. But when we started this implementation and started talking to customers, we also figured out they want to allocate their parts. So parts is a pretty significant business once they sell their appliances. So they not only want to look at the price of the SKU, but they also want to allocate the sales volume from the parts business every quarter, and from there allocate that part based on how the SKU is selling in terms of volume. Allocate the part sales to the SKU sales, and then arrive at the SKU price first. And once they arrive at the SKU price, because these are very easy to build that kind of logic using the framework and allocate the parts price to the SKU price, and then arrive at the SKU price, then look at the cost that is driving, and then look at the margin for that SKU, and then roll up that margin to the SKU category. So that was a very interesting implementation we just finished. Again, in this case, they were using their own or top of Oracle EBS. So we got the data into IMCM platform using Oracle utility, and then we exposed the data, made sure the data is correct. In some cases, data itself was not correct. That was a discovery. And then we went through some of the use cases, and then business wanted us to kind of do this parts price allocation to the SKU price, get the new derived SKU price, and then do the margin analysis. So that was pretty interesting. We just finished the 2.5 months project. Okay, start again. Okay. The other project we are getting into, we are starting proof of concept with this customer. They are global eye care product major. In their case, their manufacturing process, because they are making this contact lenses, so they have a solution going into that lens. They have some coating going into that lens. The lens itself is complex to manufacture. Their supply chain is not very complicated, but their manufacturing process is pretty complicated. So what they're trying to do, they do this lens manufacturing in US, Mexico, UK, and in few other parts of the globe. And everywhere, the same SKU is made a little different. So they're trying to arrive at a global manufacturing process template and see today if they define a manufacturing process template, standard cost of operation, how the resource needs to be consumed, how that rolls up into manufacturing cost, how each plant is different from the other plant, and how each product category is different from the other product categories, where the manufacturing operations variance come, and what contributes, what cost element contributes to that operation cost variance, whether the products, the process, the labor that they use. And based on that analysis, they want to kind of report that to their financial team for their analysis, but they also want to use this platform once we expose this kind of data and they understand their budget versus actual, what they're budgeted for manufacturing process per plant or per region versus actually what is happening in each region. They want to understand that cost difference. They want to understand which process is driving that cost difference. And based on that, they want to create a global process template for manufacturing so that each plant now start kind of going through a change management process once they tell each of the plants where the variation is coming. And then, of course, plan versus actual, there will be always some variation. But they are trying to expose this data using this platform, understand the cost elements, which is driving primarily the manufacturing cost, and then create a global process template so that each plant kind of adheres to that. And then there is not a lot of plant to plant, category to category variation in the manufacturing process and the cost which is related to that. So they want to again report that actual budgeted versus variance to their finance team. So in this case also, customer is using Oracle EBS. The data will be transferred to a cloud platform. We are hosting in-memory cost management cloud solution for them. So we are getting the data, and then based on that data, they have given us the report structure that they want to see. And then the moment the data is in, we will expose that data and see how we can give the level of information that they are doing. So few lessons learned. We are coming at the top of the hour, and I'm also seeing some questions in the chat. So I'm hoping our team is replying to that, but anyway, we'll follow up. But the key thing is we have learned quite a few interesting lessons from our implementation. So one key thing is it's very important that we go into the POC or implementation with the scope or use case in mind, but it's very important that we kind of try to define as much details those use cases as possible, and the KPIs around cost and profitability, and then how we kind of address cost and profitability around the use cases. So detailing of that use case or scope is pretty important. And then because we are talking about supply chain, right, and we kind of started with the elements, whether it's transportation, distribution, manufacturing, procurement, indirect. So we are talking about really multiple business groups within the team who will be impacted. So if we are defining use cases, trying to put a scope, getting into business workshop, make sure that whoever is impacted in this analysis, all the key stakeholders or the subject matter experts from those teams come to a common workshop. We cannot do a procurement analysis separate from a manufacturing analysis and then see the overall cost, because everything is kind of rolling up to the overall cost. Very interesting thing is so we start with the concept in mind, what we want to see, what are the drivers, but the good thing is that now because the infrastructure is there, we pull in the entire data from your source ERP system. We define what data needs to come in, but we really want the full data because the devil is in the details. So once the details is exposed, then the use case become much more robust or kind of aligned to what business wants to do around their data. So a big part of this kind of implementation is to get the data in, make sure the data is correct, go through some data cleanup process, which the platform will expose, and then let the business look at the data, be familiar with the data, how the data is getting presented by the cost types, cost elements, and the scenarios, and then define the use case. The right team to sponsor this, because this is kind of a game changer in terms of operation, how you look at various cost elements, where you will go and tweak and change, and what will be the impact, whether it's a purchasing, indirect direct procurement, or how you ship out your products. So there needs to be, of course, you can do a theoretical exercise, but if you have to translate this into really meaningful, actionable items for your business, you need to involve the right stakeholders, because after this exercise, we are seeing with a few customers that we are working with, it's kind of eye-opener, and they're going through a lot of change management aspects. Even to educate business, the subject matter experts, how you look at your cost, what are the elements you can play around with, that itself is a change management, because they have not been doing this in their current life with their ERP system, because those capabilities doesn't exist. Training is important. It takes a couple of weeks for business to kind of understand the data, and then use the UIs provided by the platform to get used to different ways of doing things. It takes, I won't say it's a long time, because the UIs are pretty intuitive. The interesting part is the data. The moment the data is exposed and business gets that insight, within a couple of weeks, they get pretty much used to it, how to navigate and use the elements, how to do simulation, then start getting into the detailed use case implementation. So training is important, but it's kind of intuitive enough to kind of get business up to speed on platform usage. And then reporting is a big piece, because we are doing all this cost simulation analysis. You have the smart views, you can export data out of smart views, but then cloud provides native reporting capability. There's quite a bit of configuration that you can do. But in a couple of customers that we have worked with, we have seen they wanted pretty customized report. So it is very important to define the reporting requirements upfront during the workshop. And then there are ways and means. Cloud provides some REST services that you can use to construct those reports. And again, the platforms are flexible enough to create reports as per business requirements. So almost we are close to the hour. Again, I think the questions are coming there. We might not have time to do a Q&A here, but I'll just spend 1 minute kind of setting the context from Trinamix perspective. So we are one of the leading partners of Oracle. We started our journey in 2009. A few of our partners came from Oracle development team, so very, very strong connection with Oracle in general. And our background is into value chain planning, supply chain management, manufacturing. That's where we came from. And that's why these kind of manufacturing, supply chain oriented cloud solutions are very, very close to our heart, and we are working with Oracle on that. We are a global player, US, India being a core operation. Then we have started in UK. We have started our operations in Canada, big time in Japan, Australia. We are there for last 1 year around cloud. Come from high-tech, retail, industrial manufacturing. Those have been our core industries where we have focused. Again, that kind of naturally flows into this kind of solutions that we want to implement with customers to provide them business value. We have been into Oracle on-premise solutions for a long, long time. Now we are mostly focusing into cloud-based platforms. We cover the entire ERP, supply chain, financials planning, and then the PLM aspect of it. We have started a practice around our Industry 4.0, IoT, AI kind of platform rollout. Again, we are focusing on the manufacturing, supply chain, financial aspects of the solution. And we have been working with Oracle, a lot of certifications, both on-prem, cloud. We have learned through that, and we are learning every day with customer and Oracle interaction. How we can help? I think Trinamix today has the most number of implementations going on with in-memory cost management cloud and customer interactions. We have our POC environment. We can help you with a quick POC. We can get your data and show you, work with you on the use cases. Of course, Oracle provides a connector with Oracle EBS, but we have worked with SAP install-based customer. We can get SAP data based on our framework and connectors that we have mapped with SAP. We can make it also work with any other ERP system because there is a common framework. We are, again, gone through the implementation. That's where the implementation learning came from. We are learning more every day, interacting with customers. So this application is more business oriented than any other application that we have seen, because moment you expose data, the technology part kind of goes away. After that, it's all business using data and kind of creating the scenarios. So we are learning through these rollouts. And then we are working very, very closely with the Oracle development team on this implementation, learning where the product needs to improve, what kind of additional reporting needs to work with. So we have very strong connection and support from the Oracle development team rolling out this product. So do let us know if we can help get into details, work with Oracle to show you a demo on any particular aspects of this implementation. We'll be very, very happy to engage with you. So I'll take a quick look at the questions that have come. Yeah, I think already our team is replying to that question. Okay, so otherwise we'll follow up on this. I think we mostly have your contact details, so we will reply to the questions which are open. But thank you very much for joining this session. Hope you got a good overview, understanding of the platform and what opportunities you have with this platform to impact cost analysis at your end to drive better margin and profitability with your products. So thank you very much. We'll be in touch. Let us know if we can help. Please contact us through your Oracle representatives. You can contact us directly. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.